It all started with a scream. Not from me or my family, but from her. A woman, well-dressed, with a mimosa in one hand and the other clutching the sides of a pink flamingo float, as an Angus cow nudged her right into the murky water of my cattle pond. Now, I know, it sounds like some kind of slapstick comedy, right? But I'll tell you, this was no joke, and the chaos it set off, well, that's something you won't forget. But let's back up a bit. This whole mess began a couple of days before that. I was just minding my business, walking down the gravel path behind the barn, when I saw something strange. Unfamiliar cars lined the old trail, luxury sedans and SUVs. At least 14 of them, from what I could count. And I wasn't expecting any deliveries. Nope. The sound of upbeat music, laughter, and splashing reached my ears, and when I rounded the corner, I froze. My cattle pond, me actual watering hole, where my cows' drink had been transformed into a full-blown resort. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, but giant inflatable flamingos and unicorns were floating around. There was a fake tiki bar on my dock, and rows of white folding chairs were set up on the bank. Women in sun hats were sipping drinks, fanning themselves like they were at some sort of luxury spa. And leading the parade, like some kind of queen, was Karen. Yeah, you know the type. Karen, self-appointed president of the HOA over there in the new development across the road, even though the HOA doesn't have any jurisdiction over my land. She's the kind of person who walks like she owns the place, talks like she runs a country club, and apparently thought she had every right to host a bridal brunch on my property without asking. No, really, she did. So, I stood there in shock for a minute, and then because I'm not the type to make a scene, I just watched. She spotted me, locked eyes, and waved like we were best friends. "Oh, hi," she chirped, as if I wasn't standing there with my mouth hanging open. "Isn't this weather just divine?" Then she proudly pointed to a banner floating by the pond that read, "Saw Serenity Springs Bridal Brunch Saw." I blinked. My cattle pond. My actual livestock watering hole. And she had the nerve to host a brunch without asking? So, I took a deep breath and smiled, trying to stay calm. She handed me a laminated pamphlet, all nice and official, with a full itinerary for the day's events: brunch, paddleboat photo ops, a live harpist, and even yoga on my hayfield. My hayfield. I'll be honest, I didn't shout, didn't even argue. I smiled because I knew this wasn't the end of it. I excused myself, walked back to the barn, and called up an old buddy of mine who happens to be a wedding planner. She laughed when I told her the story. Couldn't stop laughing. But after that, she gave me some solid advice. Let it play out. Document everything. And when the time comes, let the cows do the talking. For the next day and a half, I watched Karen and her crew set up their elegant affair. They rolled in portable toilets, built an archway near the pond, and even tried hanging fabric from my grain silo like it was some rustic wedding backdrop. One cow stood by, chewing cud and giving them that, "What the heck?" look. Honestly, it was probably the same look I had. They had put up plastic barriers to keep the cows out, but we both knew how that was going to end. Now, let's fast forward to Sunday morning. Brunch was underway. The property looked like a Pinterest board. The air smelled like hairspray, perfume, and well, the cows weren't thrilled about that. They don't like that stuff. But here's the thing Karen didn't know. But I had other plans. I calmly walked over to the barn, opened the gate to the pasture, and just waited. No big fanfare, no dramatic speech. I waited. The old gate creaked as it opened, and that was all the signal my cows needed. They heard the food. They smelled the splashing, and one by one, they started trotting down the slope toward the pond. And I'm telling you, when they cameo, they didn't run, they didn't panic, they walked in like they had an invitation on. The first cow to reach the water sniffed at an inflatable peacock, nudged it aside, and stepped right into the pond like she owned the place. Others followed suit, mooing, sniffing at drinks. One cow even got a little too close to a beach bag, licking sunscreen off it. By the time Karen noticed, it was too late. She freaked out. You've never seen a grown woman's face twist with rage like that. She started yelling at me to control my animals, and I just stood there, calm as could be, and reminded her, "This is my land, my pond, my cows. And you're trespassing." You could hear the 911 call in the background. "I need help. There's a cow attack." The deputy who showed up couldn't stop laughing. I swear he was trying so hard not to smirk as he surveyed the situation. Karen pulled out her clipboard, listing all the illegal activities I was committing on my own property. But the deputy just looked at me and asked, "Do you want to press trespassing charges?" I declined. But let me tell you, I had bigger plans for this. Revenge wasn't going to come with fines or court dates. No, I was going to let nature take care of it, the old-fashioned way. By the time Karen and her guests realized what had happened, the entire event had descended into chaos. People were slipping and sliding through the mud. A woman was crying over her ruined sandals, and Karen's niece was sitting on a hay bale, mascara running, veil crooked, while a cow chewed on the hem of her dress. My cows, they were living their best life. Karen stormed off, calling me every name in the book, but I didn't care. I just stood there, sipping my coffee, watching the cows, enjoying the mess that she'd created all by herself. But that wasn't the end. Oh no, Karen didn't back down. Instead, she retaliated. She had her sights set on getting rid of my cows once and for all. She started making up wild stories about the cows making noise pollution and emitting dangerous methane gas. She even tried to get the HOA involved. She was relentless. That's when I decided to fight back. I called in a favor from a lawyer friend who specialized in land use rights. I was ready to take her down. I wasn't just defending my cows, I was defending my property. I wasn't going to let her push me around. And when she tried to drag the whole thing to the zoning board, I was ready. I gathered every piece of paperwork, every deed, and every piece of evidence I had showing that my pond was mine legally, historically, and for the cows. I even brought in testimony from neighbors who'd seen my cows using the pond for decades. And you know what happened? The zoning board laughed her out of the room. She had nothing. No legal standing. Nothing. But Karen didn't quit. She still tried to manipulate the system from behind the scenes. She started scheming with the real estate agents, trying to buy up a piece of land next to mine, so she could put up a fancy VYUing Pa VY lion. Also, she could look at my pond and host her events without stepping foot on my land. I wasn't about to let that happen. I made a call to the landowner, and within hours, I had secured the land next to me. I even put up a sign that read, "Private property. Cows may approach without warning," just to make sure Karen knew exactly where she stood. She didn't take it well, of course. She built a decorative fence along the property line, all fancy and covered in ivy. But I wasn't done yet. I called up a local paintball group and offered them the land behind her fence. Every weekend, they came over, blasting paintballs and having a good time. The sound of their games echoed across the line. And I'll tell you, Karen wasn't happy about it. And that's when she really lost it. She tried to turn my cows into dangerous livestock, filming them to make it look like they were attacking her. But the HOA wasn't having it anymore. They saw through her lies, and her complaints were ignored. She escalated again, sitting outside my property in her SUV with binoculars, trying to catch my cows doing something wrong. She posted a video online, claiming animal abuse. But the internet didn't buy it. People were on my side. The kids from the neighborhood even started bringing cookies to thank me for letting them see the cows up close. And then, I had an idea. If she wanted a public fight, I'd give her one. I invited everyone, neighbors, the mayor, even the zoning board to a big community event I called Saw Moo at the Moon Saw. There were food trucks, live music, and of course, cow meet and greets. People loved it. The community loved it. Karen didn't show her face, but the message was clear. My cows weren't just mine, they were a part of the community now. And as for Karen, well, she moved a few weeks later, Leah VYing behind her fancy fence and her dreams of controlling my pond. She thought she could buy up the land, build her little pa VY lion, and take over, but she never understood the land. Not like I did. As I sat on my porch that night, watching my cows by the water, I thought about everything that had happened. Karen had tried to push me off my own land. But in the end, it wasn't her who won. It was the land. And the cows. I think Karen learned the hard way. You can't fake belonging. Not when the land remembers every boot that stepped on it. And I'm pretty sure my cows will be here long after Karen's forgotten about us.